Is the thing on? Is this thing on?
Hello. Close enough to me.
Welcome back, everybody.
I was giving him fingers
Hello.
going high.
I might have just came in real hot mic'd right there because I'm like, hi, everybody.
It's
Poppy also
Christopher
says
with
hi.
the ultra volume. Hello. The thing is on.
We're on.
Well, hello.
We're here.
We are here with the on thing. Welcome back, everybody, to whatever the heck today is. Did today Tuesday? I feel like I have a really hard time remembering what day it is these days. I'm going to touch this microphone, which is probably going to put a lot of volume in because I can't see the screen right there.
It is cold.
It is cold in
Very
the zone.
It is cold.
100% it is cold in the zone here.
It is cold.
Pretty sure it's Tuesday. Did you say you didn't know what day it was?
Yeah, I was like, I don't know what day it is. They all run
Lumberjack
together.
Hello.
Lately, it's kind of crazy because I do get to the point where, like, a Wednesday, I'll be like, it's Friday, right? Not because I need it to be Friday, but just because it really felt like Friday for some reason. I don't know what's going on. Don't trust me on what's going on. I have no clue.
What is it, 65 there? I will tell you. It is 64. It's
Yeah.
much colder than you thought.
Yeah.
Welcome in, everybody.
This weekend, when we were out doing our take the dogs for a ride, it was 4 and 0 for most of the ride.
Yep.
Very, very cold. And Cora sticks her head right out in it.
People can't live in that kind of temperature. That's not a thing.
If you're just catching up with us, everybody, we are hopping back into the non-metallic gold. Source, oh, is that? Nope. Flapjack, Wad, Swifty Bear, Panic Bomb, Source, Cannibal. Welcome in, everybody.
It's
Oh.
14 where Swifter Bear is, and 15 in Chicago. That is, like, not livable.
Humans cannot survive. I don't know if you got the memo.
I don't know how you guys do it.
You must have missed that memo. But humans cannot survive in that kind of temperature. So
Hoosier said, I just shoveled snow in 15 degrees. Feels like 0. There's a difference in 15 and 0, how it feels? Because, like, we're the opposite. Once you get past, like, 110, it's all the same. I would assume that once you get below 20, it's all the same.
yeah.
Yeah, our 115 is its 120 is our 100. It's all the same.
It's all the same. Camology flying to Phoenix tomorrow for a work thing. First time in Arizona. Are you planning a trip to Monument Hobbies? Are you going to stop by and see us?
You should.
Five in Iowa today. Well, that's
5?
That's too cold.
That's
5?
the thing.
That's not enough numbers.
I feel like you forgot a digit
Yeah,
or
there
two.
should be at least 2 in your temperature.
Yeah. You have to have at least 2 digits in your temperature or I'm not going there.
If you guys are just
If you had time,
tuning
you would.
in,
You're only there for 2 days. It's all at the resort. Well, nice.
it's all at
which
the-
resort?
Ooh, going to a resort.
What?
You just say the word resort, and we're all like, "Ooh, that sounds nice."
Oh, that does sound nice.
Spiffy.
It's been a cold couple days, chat.
20 degrees is man, this sucks. 0 is F this.
0 is I'm leaving, hopefully, wherever I'm at.
Oh, no, that doesn't count, though. It's minus 15 in Montreal. That's 2 digits, right? No, that's the wrong direction. Two
Yeah,
positive digits.
It can't have a negative in front of it.
So, Jason, what color are we working with today?
A brighter color.
A brighter color?
It's a bright one.
So specific.
It's a bright yellow. This is bright yellow ochre.
It's a bright yellow ochre.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, Yeah, we're going over where we left off using the bright yellow ochre over the top of the orange brown that was last. it is our first jump in value towards being able to have shine on the model. So again, I'm moving on to the other portions of it. We were working on the shoulder yesterday. Left off there. Now I'm going to start putting some color on the gorget, the other shoulder plate. Kind of randomly move around here and try to find my lighting direction that I'm comfortable with. The brighter colors will be where you start dialing that in. So that's what we'll be doing today.
Cool.
Lots of bright yellow ochre.
Oh, your Cannibal's thinking of so many different paint buttons for me from yesterday.
Much more complicated.
A paint rack that when the paint bottle is taken out makes the swatch and name appear. Oh yeah, like a trigger on the paint rack. That's what my brain needs.
Just a little dancing bottle that like dances across the screen.
Gosh, that actually would be a great idea.
I need you to stop over there, Christopher. Don't let these people defocus you because they're good at that.
Ooh.
Yeah, Camology, that is not far from us. Probably less than half an hour.
You got a frog in your throat over there.
I do. And a dog on my lap.
I was fighting that earlier.
Well, I'm glad you liked it. The skin video.
It's fantastic. Christopher absolutely killed it.
Yeah, Camology said that the new video was great. Watched the whole live series.
Nice.
Seeing it edited down in that format was amazing.
Nice. That's definitely what we like to hear.
Glad you're digging it, gang.
Yep.
It is the whole reason and purpose behind the changes to the studio.
That's the idea. Also, when I'm watching these things, it's a good reference for me to also be like, now I get to go back and watch that same video.
I was telling Brenna about it this morning. Brenna, one of our crew members here, is a student and she's pursuing an art degree and just started classes yesterday.
Nice.
So she was talking about how she's excited to learn new mediums this semester. And I was like, well, you should really watch this video that we just put out because Jason painted skin and it looked all crazy and then it looked like a face. So
that was the fun part of that, is just seeing we were talking about it yesterday a little bit, the trusting of the process, the foundation, and how important the foundation really is for stuff like this. Because it really is the, 70, maybe 80% of the workup is happening. And then that final 20% is the thing that really kicks it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. We called it Kenny calls it the dumpster fire.
Right.
Right, the ugly phase.
The ugly phase. That's
and,
what Campbell was saying yesterday.
Where everything looks like, what the heck are you trying to do over there? And then you find that one color or that one step of the process that brings it all together, and it just doesn't even look the same. Here on stream, we always have people that are like, I went away to the bathroom or to fix a sandwich, and I came back, and it looks totally different. And that's kind of the thing. To get your brain out of that kind of locked in point where you think that everything needs to just look great from beginning to end, that every paint brush mark you put on the model just makes it that much better. Right? Sometimes that's not the case. Sometimes it takes going through a really ugly phase before you see the finished product become what you really are looking for, and finding that not only that confidence but that ability to be patient is key.
Don Gibson said, how many bottles of Pro Acryl can I travel back with from Adepticon in my carry-on bag, or do I need to just check them in? So it's liquid, so the same liquid rules apply. So whatever you can fit, they have to be in what is it, like 3-ounce containers in a 3-quart Ziploc bag, I think is the official.
I think you get like 3 quarts. I don't remember. It's easy to look up on the
just check
FAA,
TSA.
TSA.
But you can definitely, especially if you're buying them at Adepticon, and if you don't open them, they're going to be sealed. So they're going to have 2 seals on them. Keep them nice and tightly sealed so they shouldn't leak in your bag or anything like that. Jason does it all the time. He carries the Evo bag. He takes the foam paint trays out, puts them in like a grocery bag or a plastic bag, and puts them in his suitcase. And then whatever is going to take up that space in the suitcase, he uses in his Evo bag as a carry-on.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great way. Camo's asking, mentioning going back to the 70% done subject, would you say the face is done, or do you have any other plans for it?
No, definitely not. And we've spoken about it a lot during this process, is that I will typically only paint any portion of the model to about early on, like 60-70% done of what I think is done, and then I'll move on to all the other parts of the model that are next to it. So for the face, when we did that video, immediately we then went and did some of the hair, because the hair is the next color immediate proximity to the skin. And so I know if it's going to be blonde, it may be brighter than the skin tone by the time I'm done, so I'll paint some of the hair. I was happy with the way the hair and the flesh kind of melded together. Then we did the black armor. I did the black armor first because the gold sits on top of it, right? The gold outlines the black armor in a lot of places, and I didn't want to get paint on the gold as I did the black, trying to get underneath it. You know, trying to do the black armor up in these corners and stuff would have sucked if the gold was already done. But the whole goal is to get to the brightest part of the model and get the brightest part of the model painted to some level of what you like to be complete-ish. So we'll take that to like 80-90% done, because everything else has to kind of conform to the brightest part of the model. The brightness of the gold reflections, because I'm still only in kind of my mid-tone level. We're going to go up to bright pale yellow on the gold. And so the bright pale yellow will be the brightest thing on this model with the time when we put it on. So it's going to make every other color on the model look dark. So I typically only paint enough to make sure I'm liking the color, I'm liking the progression, I've got stuff where I want it, and then I start dealing in all the other color on the model. Then I go back and I fine-tune brightness and darkness as I need to make sure that every part of the model can be in the right contrast to keep you looking at it. Right now the black armor looks great. The gold is getting there. The face is too dark, because the bright colors we've put on, the bright reflection on the black armor and the bright yellow, have now made the colors of the face go dark. Even though when you watch that video, the face looks a lot brighter than it does to your eyes right now, because all of the rest of this was in dark primer, right? So it was the brightest thing on the model, therefore your eyes saw the most contrast, thought, oh yeah, that's great. But then you start putting other brighter colors on and it starts darkening up, and you know you've got to go back and work on it. So typically, like I said, 50, 60, 75% done up until the point where I'm at the end of the model. All of the parts of the model have color on them, and then you go back and forth dialing in brightness and fine-tuning each of those parts to make the whole model look good together. Otherwise, you can wind up in a position where some parts are just overly bright. Gets that disco ball feel that I talk about a lot. Too much brightness and contrast on areas in the model that shouldn't have it. Or not enough. So gotta be careful.
Source to go back, her name is Brenna. Yes, Brenna. PPS Charles said, catching up since the new year. New studio looks great. Where's Jordan?
Jordan is working in sales.
Yeah. He will be, did you say here Friday?
He'll be here on Stream Friday.
Painting on Friday on stream.
My plan is to be at LVO Friday.
Oh, that's right.
assuming nothing crazy goes on between now and then, I will be at LVO Friday and some of Saturday. And Jordan will be here on Friday streaming with Chris. And then I'll be back on Monday.
Kenneth the Red said, this past weekend we had a painting event at my local game store, and I tried to replicate the technique on my Night Swatch Army. I think the face, the skin. I was telling people about it, and then I saw the video on YouTube, so I shared it on the store's Discord. There were a couple of minds blown by the video, I mean.
That's great.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks for sharing it. Thanks for trying it. That's awesome.
Yeah, we've had a bunch of tremendous feedback on it, which is great.
This is just the beginning.
Oh, yeah. Big plans. Lots of content just from this one model.
Yeah, we were talking about that yesterday. Busts like this can kind of, they kind of provide that, just a bunch of just different options. I don't even know what I was trying to say right there. But this one has a lot of cool examples: fur, metals, hair, skin, all of that.
The Dork Depot will see you at LVO.
Nice. I know tons of people that are not able to come due to all the California stuff, so I wish them all the best. I know it's going to be a drag.
Lumberjack was saying Fuser forgot to send those minis from yesterday. Yeah, if you have examples, definitely. If you have questions, that's what the Discord messages are for. Send it to him. Mm-hmm. I'm about to I'm about to break out the transparent brown and black to glaze over some leather. I love that workup. Transparent brown is awesome.
Yeah, it works fantastic for that too.
That was one of those moments that Jordan showed me too, where I'm like, oh my gosh, I just want to put that on everything.
Yeah, we've done a lot over the years talking about how you can simplify some of your material painting by just like always looking at brown with the same 3 colors and then using transparents to shift it where you want it to be color wise. Like if you want red leather, paint it brown first and then do red transparent over the top. Lots of really cool things that you can be doing.
Smelly fella bought all the pro synthetics. Said my fingers are itching to paint with them.
Awesome.
This will be the first time I will be making a serious attempt painting with a synthetic.
Oh,
awesome.
You watch Jason do it all the time.
Smelly fella said, I've always used sables. Yeah, our synthetics are amazing.
I'm using a super old one. This is the sample brushes from our old artillery brushes.
Really?
Yeah. So these are like ancient history right here. We don't even sell these anymore. They happen to be on my desk. After Chris moved everything, I was like, oh, look.
That's a 6, right?
I have these brand new brushes. This is a 4.
Oh, that's a 4. Okay.
Like I have these brushes that I forgot I had.
We're zoomed in 200%. I'm like, oh, that's really big
really
for
big.
a 4. No, we're way zoomed in. It's looking great.
Smelly fella, your order, if you place it Saturday night, it should go out like Thursday maybe. We're a little bit behind. We've had some sick folks. And
definitely
all
a
the
big,
things. So
big
we're working
rush.
hard.
That's for sure.
That I keep looking back and like that holiday that USPS took last week for the
such a
Carter
bummer.
Memorial really threw us off too.
Oh, I didn't even think about that.
The Jimmy Carter thing that just came out of nowhere. We're going to get a day off. It's like, come on,
really interesting. So is that becoming a national holiday? To not sound super naive.
No, it's just the observance day when the president passes.
Yeah, that they just initiated an order that it would be a federal holiday that day. So
got you. Interesting. Yeah. I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
Source is asking, any chance we'll get a larger dry brush anytime?
Larger than the DD3?
The BAB is coming back.
Oh, that's my
favorite. It's a 10 millimeter flat dry brush. So yes, but not a bigger round one.
Mm-hmm. I think that we picked up the DA 100 at like Home Depot.
I remember when Jason used that live on stream.
That was not me
himself, the one and only.
That was not me. I was not here that day. That was you.
I don't know what you're talking about. Oh no, it's all lies.
So I was going to do my brightness over here towards this shoulder where the lion is, right? And then work it a little bit darker as I go around. I got to think about in terms of like what the head shades from where the light is coming, so I can't over brighten stuff over here behind the head. You're just constantly thinking as you're moving along the model what could possibly be darkening things up, like this cloak right here on that end. Got the neck ring down inside there is gold as well for some reason, because I'm an idiot. Would have been better to just leave this black down in here, but we'll go for it anyway. I call myself a lazy painter, and then I do all these things that make me not able to be lazy.
Gamut Eli said the day Jason used the DA100 was the first day Jordan read my name right on stream.
That
We'd
also
been
too was
mispronouncing it
Jordan
the whole time. Who knew it was Gamut Eli? Kamal G said, still wrapping my head around non-metallic metal. Would airbrush be handy for any of these steps? I like airbrushing a lot, so I try to use it as much as I can.
Yeah, you can airbrush non-metallics to get the initial setup going. It's harder to get your bright areas. You can kind of spot them out on particular shapes, you know, like stuff like this that has a lot of detail. The airbrush would get too much color in the deep areas, so I prefer brush. But you could do the base coats this way, right? I could have started with the dark color in the mid-tone and so forth, and then really just go with the brush when you're doing your bright colors like what I'm doing now. I don't know that I would use the airbrush with this color. Now, at the end, whenever I get done with the highest highlights, the brightest reflections, sometimes taking the airbrush then, depending on if you can do very controlled close-in work, you can get in and use the airbrush to blend those highlights back out. If you've had trouble with your brush, or, you know, like me, sometimes I have a lot of real sketchy brush work going on. The airbrush at the very end of the model can help smooth your blends out. So you could go back with a bright color there, and that can work great. So yeah. But, you know, you're not going to do like your fine reflection lines and stuff with an airbrush unless you're just insane with your airbrush. I've seen people that do photo retouching that can do that. That's not me. I'm good with an airbrush. I'm not that good.
I mean, you'd have to have like a super small needle, I would imagine, for some of that stuff too.
Well, and the ability, it's really your control.
Yeah, like the pressure and all that
to
too.
be able to control the amount of paint that you're putting out, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the ability to do really, really fine line work on a small area is very, very admirable. But I could use the airbrush to go and hit this area where that shine is with the white blue, very, very diluted, and it could blend that out for me to give you kind of the fact that light, when it reflects off of shiny objects, can look very defocused, and the airbrush does that. It gives it that very soft look, so it can be great.
Mo, welcome in.
Mo.
Come on, Mo.
There was another question. James Mathias said, what would you do on this model if it had a very large, smooth cylinder, a la a Space Marine jump pack thruster, in terms of non-metallic metal?
You mean, it's like, how would I do a sphere? How would I highlight a sphere?
Yeah, I think it's how would you create non-metallic metal on a large, smooth cylinder like a Space Marine jump pack thruster.
Your Dante's a great example of that too.
Yeah, I mean, so...
Right?
Like, if you've got the... Dante's using the old style one, right?
Oh, right, okay.
Where they are cylinders. So that works, right? You just do those I call them horizontal, but depends on how you're holding it, right? But you bisect the length of that with a shine line. That's how a cylinder highlights, is you'll have a highlight that runs the length of the cylinder from the highlight spot. So that's the simplest way to do cylinders. You're going to, you know, brighten an edge, have that highlight follow down. It's kind of a tornado pattern. The highlight's going to be thicker at the point closest to the light and then get thinner as it goes away, but it's going to create a line that goes down the cylinder. It's the same way I've done his arms, right? So the cylinder of the arm is the same and creates the same shine. So that's the easiest way to show you, right? And then you just make sure that you catch edges where panels are and things of that nature. So your constantly bringing your darker reflection from the shadow on the ground and whatever up in your midtones and then highlights, right, like you would with any cylinder, and then dropping that bright reflection through it. We do, there are so many cylinders on the human body, the legs, the trunk of the torso, right, the arms, they're all the same. So you can see that repeated throughout this model, where I just have that line of brightness that then, depending on how shiny you want the armor to be, if I wanted this to be a higher polished gold, then that shine would stand out more, and then it would immediately go to a darker reflection. Right? I've got Dante's gold armor a little bit more battle worn here, so the shine is diffused out a little bit to the other areas.
And Mr. Blue is saying, how do you separate things visually with the same color, but actually different objects and materials like leather and wooden swords when you're doing non-metallic metals?
When you're doing...
how do you separate the light source on different materials is what I'm reading there from Mr. Blue.
No, I think it's just if you've got two things that are brown, but one's leather and one's wood, how do you make them look different?
Yeah. We talk about that a lot in terms of making sure that you either alter the color a little bit or in texturing, right? So you can use the texture that you put on with the brush, because the model may not always have a different texture. Let me see if I can find a good example here of something that has multiple colors that I'm using for different materials. Hold, please.
If you're thinking of a model, I know where they're at too.
And Donald Kelly, watch it on whatever platform is easiest for you.
So
some people have Twitch blocked, so they watch on YouTube. Doesn't matter.
Right. So here's a good example of, I've got a leather pouch, right? Belts, wooden handle that I've chosen to do on the dagger, right? And then also on the shaft of the axe that kind of pokes out there. So, I want to be able to use a lot of browns on this, her leather, hardened leather tunic and skirt, right? So I want to have various forms of leather in their brown nature, but so here I did red along with it to give it that kind of ox blood look to the leather, so it's been dyed. And then I've done all the rest of these in brown and then used like our brown transparent paint at various levels over the top. But all of the leather was painted, even the handle was all painted the same. But instead of the brown transparent, which has kind of an orangey look on the leather bag and straps, gives them one color. But then the wood handles, even though I use the same dark umber, light umber, olive flesh as a way to create all of... Can we punch in a little bit further?
Yeah.
Right, so you'll notice that I've used the olive flesh as a way to create texture on the leather with a little bit of stippling and hash marking, so it gives the leather the feel that it is a little bit beat up along the edges of the belt top and things like that. And then on the wood, I just did the grain, linear grain, and same thing up here. Created that. That's not in the sculpt, so I just painted the wood grain on there. Those are all done in the same color, dark umber, light umber, and olive flesh. Dark umber, light umber, and olive flesh. But on this, I took our brown transparent, thinned it way down, and put it over the top, which gives it kind of an orangey, yellowish look to the leather for the belts and straps, and our brown wash on the parts that are wood. So it just makes them look a different color of brown when up next to the leather. But a lot of it is the texture that I painted in the wood grain is different than the little dots and hash marks that I've done on the leather, so it looks like a different material. So if you just use those brush strokes to create hash marking, stippling, things like that, it looks like if you were to touch it, it would feel different, even though the color is exactly the same. So this allows you to reuse the same color over and over again, right? And then maybe just alter it a shade or two by using a wash on some of your browns and not on others. So maybe your boots are darker than the leather pants, but they can all be the same browns. Things like that allow you to shift the color a little bit and are great ways to enliven the use of a limited palette through creating those textures. And that's exactly what those texture trainers are for, right? Is so we can take and paint, like Jordan, when he did this one, used nothing but browns, really, on the whole thing. This is a lot of the paints out of Flamon's set. Right, but for the webbing and the brown leather on the pouches, he used browns, but then also a little bit of the green brown, right, and a little bit more of an olivey color on those, and then the darker browns on the pants, and then another type of brown up here that uses a little bit more of a faded color on it. So now I have a lot of brown going on here. Right, he's got some oh gosh, why am I not remembering? Dark plum in the recesses. So he's got dark plum as a shadow color on some of these, which makes it look really cool with that reddishness to it. And then, of course, skin is also a lot of browns and peaches and things like that. So this is a very limited palette, it would seem, but all of those things stand out from one another very well. Just because of the alteration and the use of texturing, and he's got more scratches and highlighted areas on the green belt than he does on the rest of them, that makes the material look like it might shine more or less, or just have more battle damage and weathering to it, like up here, the scratches and stuff on those chest pouches versus the pants.
Papa Chick is asking if I'm wanting to make a tan/khaki color from my transparents, would that just be brown and white? Seems like the brown is a little too warm for that.
Okay, so wait, if you want to make a transparent tan from transparents, the brown, white, and yellow could work. It depends on how yellow you want it. More white, less brown would, of course, get you to one that's not near as warm. Realize that the brown will overtake the transparent white, so you'll need to do like 3, 4, 5 to 1 white to brown to get where you're going. But yeah, just keep going down that path. You'll find it. You just need more of the white than the brown. The brown is a much warmer brown in the transparents.
Perfect.
Derpsick said, I was like painting leather, excuse me, leather in different colors. Can't wait to use the transparent brown for leathers. So you thinned it.
Oh yeah, way down, just with water.
Leather on the bag.
It's so good. If you go and watch the transparent video we have on YouTube, you will see that exact example that Jordan uses.
Yeah, you just thin it down with water, and you can alter the thinning to create all sorts of different variations of how intense that brown transparent will alter your leather too.
James Mathis is acting. Is there a way to prevent chalkiness when layering with brighter colors? I find it happens the most with light flesh tones and yellows.
You're thinning too much. Stop diluting with so much water, and remove most of the material off of your brush before you put it on the model. Like, that's exactly what I'm doing here, right? I'm glazing very, very thin with bright yellow ochre. And it would also get very chalky if I had more material on my brush, meaning more liquid on my brush would cause it to get chalky, because we talk about this a lot. The more water or thinner that you put into a paint, the further apart the pigments spread. And if you're using a lot of water has a high surface tension, so it creates droplets that push that pigment out to the edges and create little pools of pigment that aren't consistently across the surface of the model. They start to collect wherever the water goes. So the more water you have, the more uncontrollable it is. So that's why I use my thumb, right, to take most of the paint off. So I'll come and I'll get my brush pretty wet, grab some more of the yellow. I'm going to be glazing with it, so it's very wet, very thin, right? You see all the moisture on my brush. And then I come over here and I take most of it off, so that I don't ever have the ability to put a big droplet of moisture on the model. Now when I come over here, I'm secure in the fact that I can do an edge and it won't bleed. I can glaze into this highlight here and it'll be nice and smooth. And I don't have to put as many layers together on the model, because that causes me problems too. And then I avoid all of that, even with whites.
Smelly Fellow is asking the question, which is better, a wet palette or a dry palette, or does it come down to personal preference?
Mostly personal preference. If you ask me, dry palette, always the better way to go. But as you're learning blending and as you're getting used to painting, if you don't come from a world where you use a lot of paint all the time, then a wet palette can allow the paint to be workable a little bit longer and be a little friendlier to you as you go. So there's nothing wrong with them. I'm using a dry palette. If you want to switch over to palette, I'm literally using a piece of palette paper. So, and you can see all of my colors are just little pools of paint that I pull little tails out of and do all my mixing on here. And yeah.
I definitely love the glass palette myself.
There is a glass palette underneath my paper, but it hasn't been cleaned in 18 million years. So,
but that's you can see all the journey happening on it.
Yes. At this point, that's my excuse. I don't want to forget the journey. Thank you, Christopher.
Oh, it's gonna get clean now. Then we're like, what do we do?
Following up on the palette discussion, Chemology said, what's the advantage of using palette paper over other dry palette surfaces? I have a glass palette that I've been using.
I prefer the glass. Like we said, I wasn't joking. The glass palette is just, I'm lazy and I haven't cleaned it. So, and we have palette paper for traveling with because I don't want to take glass and bust it and have to deal with all that nonsense. So I use glass in the studio and palette paper when I travel.
Is there an advantage to a glass palette?
It looks cool.
But it just works well.
It does.
Actually, I don't know what it is. I love the feel of the glass.
Well, the glass doesn't have the waxy surface that the palette paper does, so the paint doesn't beat up on it. The paint tends to lay flat and feel more controllable, even though it's the same paint, right? It's not that the paper is doing anything bad to your paint, but the glass palette won't cause the paint to beat up. There's that waxy surface that has that kind of oil versus water effect on palette paper that can make some people mad when thinning with water-based paints, because it'll cause it to beat up.
At Tax Frost is asking, what do you think is the max amount of layers until it gets chalky anyway in the end? Going back to our chalkiness.
I mean,
question.
I would never be, if you're glazing and you're doing more than 3 or 4 layers, I will say you're doing it wrong. Because you're going to lose vibrancy in the paint. If you go over 3 or 4 thin layers of paint, you start desaturating it, which can be good. And there are some situations where you'll see me glaze like, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 layers onto a thing. But by the time I'm doing that, I'm not trying to put so much color on there that the chalkiness would ever be a problem. I'm barely shifting hues at that point. So you're just using very, very limited amount of pigment to have just a very, very minor impact on the model. What happens to most people is they're trying to do what I'm doing now. They want bright yellow ochre to be on the model and visible, but they're putting it on so thin that it takes a lot of layers to get it visible. And by the time you've done enough layers to make the paint visible at the intensity that you want it, you've now created all sorts of problems like spotting. You've got like cloudiness and chalkiness to the paint when you get to brighter colors. The darker colors are doing the same thing. They just aren't creating the same contrast, so you're not seeing it the same way. There's nothing different about the bright paints. Some people make it seem like the pigments are different and bleached and things like that. And while that can be the case and make the pigment a little more uncontrollable, that's not what's causing your chalkiness at that high end. What's causing your chalkiness is too many thin layers when what you're really trying to do is make the paint visible. You're wanting to see that white in that spot, but you're thinning it down because you're afraid you're going to overdo it too quick, and then you build up 10 layers to get that white on that spot, and now it looks chalky because it's in clumps. The pigment's not doing what you want it to do. So you have to learn kind of the brush technique of glazing, which is to keep less material on the brush. So you're seeing me take a lot of the material off, right? Most of my wetness is now off of the brush, but there's still color in there, right? Still going to have color. So I can still come over here and I can glaze more color on and see it's immediately giving me impact, immediately getting the color I want on there. But it's not in big blobs of wetness, so it's controllable and the pigment all stays where I put it, right? And so that's now 2 layers, maybe 3 layers max of putting that paint there, and it looks great. Now I'm done. So you just have to be able to understand that, okay, let's do this area here. I have to bring all of my brightness to this little spot right here. Put a line there, right by that rivet, because that's where my white brightness is from the black metal. So that's what I'm doing is I'm pulling all of my gold shine there too. Did the same thing down here, right? So I need to get paint on the brush, make sure the paint is thin enough, right? And that I get most of the moisture off on my thumb palette. And then when I come over here, I want to make sure that my brush direction pulls from where I don't want the color to where I do want the color. So my color needs to be here. So I start back in the shadows, pull the color up here to the midpoint, right? And I'll just keep doing that a couple times. Call this one layer as you're getting it on there. Okay, then I'll rinse my brush, go get some more paint, do it again. And then I'll go from this side because that's still wet, so I don't want to paint there. That'll tear the paint and cause its own problems. So now I'll come over to this side that I haven't done and start from where I don't want the paint to where I do want the paint. And go to that same middle point there. Right? By the time I'm done there, this is dry over here. So now I put another layer on here, going from the dark spot over to that midpoint again. So I'm building all my color up here where I want it. But I'm having to come at it from 2 different directions in order to do that, right? Because my blend goes from dark to bright to dark. And now it starts building up nice. And then my next pass will just clean that up. So I'll let that dry for a bit.
Rattle can, to answer your question, it's that you soak it overnight in soapy water. That's how I clean my glass palette, and it comes right off in the morning.
Yeah. This pass won't be as thin. So now I'll have more intensity of color as I go. Plus I'm building on top of the color that's already there, but the brush stroke is still the same, going from the dark area to the bright area, dark area to bright area.
And that's when you are pinpointing the light, correct?
Yeah, when I'm just kind of sketching it into where it needs to be. Right. Now you can start to see how it's blending from the back to the front. Each time I go in and glaze, I go a little tighter. My brush stroke the first time was probably like, from back here up to the middle. Then it goes from here to the middle, then from here to the middle, and then just in the middle.
Cool.
Caped Beardy asked, what is the palette paper used? It's called Gray Matters.
Yeah.
And it's like a pad, and you tear off pages. You can definitely find it on Amazon. If you don't do Amazon, like a Blick probably has it. Michael's maybe.
Everybody probably has some version of that gray palette paper. The gray just makes sure that all of your colors look good. White palette paper I would stay away from. It creates too much contrast between the droplets of paint, and so you'll always think your color is darker than it really is because the white is going to be way too bright all the time. So the gray is a good neutral color. You'll see some palettes that come in like various shades of like khaki, brownish, tan. Those are good too.
Is there any way to fix chalkiness once it's on the model, or is
No.
it just a lost cause?
Well, pretty much. I mean, you can paint over it.
Paul Jordan.
You have to kind of start again. Layer another dark color over the top of it, and then work again. Build it back up. Unfortunately, that's just kind of the way that works.
Ever consider monument palette paper?
We have. Very difficult to do, believe it or not.
Yeah, I can imagine.
The whole world of paper is its own world of craziness. And we don't want to be ordering, 15-foot long rolls.
And then having to cut them out.
Of paper that we have to cut, right?
Yeah.
And we have to have a very specialized type of paper that, we have to order in huge amounts. But yeah, I'm not saying it will never happen, but we won't just take a palette somebody else makes and stamp our name on it. We've got a good idea for some stuff that we want to do, but the paper world, like I said, is hard to navigate for us.
Mo said something I learned from Jason that a lot of people don't realize. The brush stroke leaves more material at the end. So you want to pull the paint toward the brightest spots.
100%. Yeah. Thanks for bringing that up, Mo. That's something that we mention all the time, is that the reason why your brush stroke makes so much difference is that you leave most of the pigment at your stopping point for general brushing technique, not where you touch the model. Now, if you have a lot of paint on your brush, a lot of the paint will come off as soon as you touch the model, so you may leave a lot of paint there, but that's not the way you want to be painting. I use the broom analogy a lot, right? When you're sweeping a floor, the broom pushes the dirt, but it leaves a pile of dirt at the end and a tail of dirt behind. And that's exactly what a brush does, pushing pigment.
Monument Hobby's mouse pad that looks like Jason's glass palette.
That would be great. It's always dirt. The OCD people would have a fit.
That's Bud's wish.
Bud's wish.
Take a real high fidelity picture of my palette, Chris, and
Yeah.
we'll do that. That'd be a cheap, swaggy thing we could do.
Oh, that'd be a good, fun sticker. Before I wipe it clean. So what if I want chalkiness, asking for a friend? Now, I don't want to say this, but I finish a lot of my models with a very heavy, like characterized dry brush, and I would say that's kind of chalky.
It does at least have a chalky edge.
But
sure.
It's so weird. It just brings me some kind of weird joy, taking olive flesh and that bomb wick brush, and just doing a dry brush of olive flesh. That's how I finish all my models for some weird reason. Brings me a lot of joy.
Well, you found that it looks good. It puts kind of a dirty highlight to everything.
Yeah, it's almost like I'm intentionally like going heavy-handed with it in some spots too.
Yeah, sure.
What's a brush technique for a dute as opposed to a deet?
Deets and
Very
dutes.
scientific.
So
highly refined.
Yeah, very refined method. So when duting, you are using the point of the brush. Deets can be used with the side of the brush. Like I would say that's kind of a deet, as we're doing that. But a dute is a very specific, like dute, very, very, use the point of the brush. Right? Get those dutes laid out the way you need them.
That's a dute.
These are dutes and deets now, right? Because I'm duting and then I'm deeting. Then I'm duting, then I'm deeting. Right? So they're usually used in tandem, right? They're cooperative processes, we call that. I just made that up, but
a cooperative process.
A cooperative process
it
between
sounded
deets and
so
dutes.
official that I don't think anybody thought about it until you said
I just made it up on the spot, and I am official, so that's what it is. It's deets and dutes are
These
a cooperative process.
Quantitative expert processes for dutes and deets, everybody.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
Once you learn the sounds, you can enter Golden Demon.
That's it. That's the secret, chat. Get a dute, get a deet, winner.
Again, make sure we capture the edge with some brightness, even down into the darkest part of the shoulder plate here. Going to make sure that we still look like it's a shiny object, even though that shine may just be a little bit of light reflecting off the ground or something in the distance. It's not direct from the sun or whatever our main light source has been determined to be. We still want to go with the same bright color. Get a little bit of brightness down here.
Dutes and deets are legally distinct cooperative processes.
Uh-oh, look out. Thank you for that.
The forbidden knowledge of the old masters. I knew it.
I knew it was about the dutes and the deets.
Takes a lot of practice. Don't be hard on yourself if you don't get it right away.
I love forbidden knowledge. We've got
Captain Beardy has a good one. You have a lot of great shorts on hair, but I'm curious what paints you would recommend for brunette hair.
I guess it just depends, right? All of the things when we discuss hair are so broad in their structure, right? Brunette is just browns, right? So,
yeah, like what kind of brunette?
Yeah, because you could have auburn is technically a brunette,
Auburn, yeah.
You want a little bit of red to it. You want a little bit of black to it. You want
Dark
it more
brown.
orangey. You want it straight up neutral browns. The key is
Like
just
a
finding
warm
the
brown,
colors
like a
you
golden
like.
brown.
Starting with a dark version, then mixing in your next color. A little bit lighter, so it could be like dark umber, light umber, olive flesh. Like we talked about with the leather. Would be a great workup for just simple, generic brunette hair. Doing a little bit of a secondary reflection spot down here.
I think the cool thing about the shorts is that, for something like hair, Jordan did one that was for pink hair. But it's really more of the technique.
Yeah.
That technique can be replicated with just different colors. but it's about putting the the base color on, and then where you place the highlights that make it look more like natural hair.
Yeah, a lot of what we teach has nothing to do with color.
Yeah.
What I'm doing right now with this particular color, right, is showing you exactly what you would need to do to paint any reflective surface. Because the concept is the placement of this color is way more important than the color itself. The value is important, right? The fact that this is a very bright color is very important right now. That I'm putting this bright color over the top of these dark colors is important. What the colors are, much less important. Because you could take this and do it with grays, and you'd be creating a steel right now. Right?
So essentially.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Nothing changes, right? It's all about shape. So volume. How does a volume reflect light? Right? How does a cylinder, a sphere, a facet of a gem, how do all of these things reflect light? Start learning that, and then you can overlay color onto that controlled light that you've learned to do now and make a gem of any color, right? Once you've learned how to paint a gem, you can use any color and paint gems of any color. But it does require you to pay attention to the process, not just the colors being used.
Mo requests a short for black hair, pretty please. Could you not use like some of the concepts of like a black metal? Wouldn't it be kind of similar to that?
Very similar,
Because
yeah.
the
Reflective.
black
Somebody
hair is
asked that
so
question
shiny.
yesterday about hair in general, and how you do black hair versus this black armor. Same thing. You could use these exact same colors, but you think in terms of how the reflection would undulate across the curve of hair versus the straight line of armor.
Yeah.
The colors could be exactly the same. Payne's gray, white, blue, do the hair, put black wash on the top of it, come back with the white, blue, and do the halo of light that happens across. Like I've got a little bit of a halo of light shine going across the forehead here, right? So, same exact thing. We talked about yesterday doing bird feathers. Same thing. We paint them the same way.
Yep. Camo's asking, for the bits of primer that have flaked off, like on an edge, are you going to brush the primer back on there, or will you use the airbrush?
I'm just using the paints that I'm painting with right now.
And just, yeah.
Yeah, like there's some that's missing like here, and I'll just use this paint. Catch that edge, right? Now, at the end of the model, if there's a really bad area, I might, come in with primer and reprime it and then paint these colors. But it takes a lot for me to want to do that.
Route said, can you show me how to do a bald head that needs a shave? Like little dots showing each individual hair. Is it just a super slow process of adding a ton of dots?
Correct. Stippling is a patience project, and stippling is the way I would do that. Now, I'll show you real quick. Let me get to a quick stopping point on this. Make sure I get my colors to where I like them there. I'm just trying to build up a secondary reflection on the underside of the sort of pseudo cylinder of this shape of the shoulder pads, right? They're spherical in the middle and the cylinders around the edges.
Attacks Frost, yes, the big winner last year. So the Slayer Sword, is that the big golden demon?
Yeah.
Frost is asking if we know Golden Dinner, which used all with Pro Krill.
And yes.
Which was an amazing piece when you start really thinking about the actual composition of that piece and what needed to go into that to make it happen. When you start really looking at the this is upside down and two reversed as a mirror, is pretty incredible.
Yeah.
Was it a big troll?
No, we're talking about it's from Adepticon last year, 2024.
Yeah.
It was a vampire lord
done
seeing his reflection in the water.
Yeah, without the reflection, it was just the bare armor.
Yeah.
Right?
Nice.
It was done really cool. Okay, so let's say we were going to stipple. Let me get a color that makes sense here. Well, let's do a flesh tone because this will be very basic color. I'm not going to blend my colors, but I just want to show you real quick.
So where are you doing, Jason?
I'm going to be taking and showing how to stipple to make like 5 o'clock shadow.
Okay, cool.
That's really all that is when we're talking about a bald head with some texturing for hair and things like that, right?
Yeah.
Stubble.
So if I were to just have a skin surface here, right? Again, my hand is always the worst place to do this because it doesn't have. I don't think I have a model though.
Do you want? I can go get you one.
Yeah, if you could.
What are you looking for?
That would help.
Like a face?
Yeah, I mean, even if we were to look at, well, we don't really have a good one. We'll just do it like this.
Okay.
And then I would probably come in with like a grayish flesh tone edition. For that, I probably would use like a warm gray or a brown gray. Even let's use brown gray. Right. And if I mix the brown gray in with my flesh tone for the first layer would give me that good kind of shadow that you can imagine being like along the jawline and such, right? If I take the flesh tone in a gray, a dark gray, and the first thing you're doing, you're not stippling really, you're just creating your shadows. Create the area where the skin would be shaded like that. So this might be across the top of the head or whatever you got, right? Because the hair follicles there are going to make the color of the skin different than in the place where they're not, okay? Then I might take that same brown gray, and then you would start stippling in just a fine pattern around inside of that other color. And I'm going to hyper exaggerate it here so that you can see the dutes. Just using the point of the brush. It's very, very hard on your brush too, by the way.
I'm going to super zoom real quick.
If you can super zoom in. Okay, there you go. Perfect, right? Okay. So just getting a fine point on your brush. Not wiping a lot of it off. You just have to have that control. This is why it takes so much time, because you just need to get good with just barely pushing the brush onto the surface. You want to then spread those dots further and further apart as you get away from the density, where the thicker hair would be back in here. And then you come back in and maybe load some more dots in between these dots up in here. And again, you just make sure they get to where they spread out as they go away from it like that. So now you have the pattern that you're looking for. This could be a beard. This could be the bald head, whatever. And then this is the hard part when I'm painting on my hand, is to make sure everything's dry. But then what you want to do at the very end is you want to go in with a thin glaze of that same skin tone that you did. Right, so I've got a very thin glaze. See how that's allowing all the color to show through still? I want to make sure I've got a lot of water or glaze wash medium, whatever you're using, and that this is just enough. And then I want to glaze over the top of all of this area that I've stippled, right? Like so. That brings the skin back into it. So now it kind of pushes all that to be more subdermal. Make sense? That was very exaggerated in contrast so that you could see the dots on the background. Mix more skin tone into your grays so that they don't stand out as much if you don't want it. But if you want dark hair, like if you had like a black beard coming in, then you go darker with the stippling than not. But grays, gray blues are great to use for that. I typically stay away from blacks and such because the darker grays will perform the same function.
Nice. There it is.
I do need some more bright yellow ochre.
We have another question. Well, first, a comment from Yasin. I've tried many different brands of paint in my life. I must say that yours are one of the best out there on the market. High quality and great results.
Thank you.
Nice.
That's awesome.
Can I ask, how would you make a skin tone that looks wet? For example, if the character just came out of water.
Somebody I was asking that the other day, I think.
Yeah. A wet skin tone is really just reflective skin. So your first goal is to kind of do what you see me doing here with the non-metallic metal. Imagine painting skin where you just went from the skin tone to something very, very bright as a reflection, like on cheeks and wherever you wanted that wetness to really show. That's the key. Is that reflective surface could be wet, right? Could be something that's just made from a shiny material. All of those count, and they're all painted the exact same way. Taking your mid-tone color and then jumping up to a much brighter color very quickly, which is what we've done here. And our mid-tone color was orange-brown, and then we jump from the orange-brown to this bright yellow ochre. And so it's starting the reflectiveness. We could do the same thing with skin. I could jump to a much brighter color of skin, and I could stipple like I just did with that the 5 o'clock shadow thing, but stippling with a bright color would make it look like beads of sweat. And then just doing a bright shine would make it look like, he's oiled down or wet or things like that. It's a tough thing to pull off depending on what you're trying to accomplish. Like if you're trying to paint a model that's climbing up out of a swimming pool on the swimming pool ladder, right? The environment that you've got the model in, you've got them looking like they're coming out of the pool, the ladder's there, then the brain already knows what they're doing, and so you don't have to work as hard. If I had this guy in my hand and I just wanted to make it seem like he was wet for some reason, and there's nothing in the scene of the model that makes it look like he would be wet, that becomes its own problem, right?
So could you use gloss varnish?
Yeah. Would a gloss varnish be any good there, or is that just a totally different concept?
So I have used in the past gloss varnish to do things like a tier, because you can do the gloss varnish and make a pronounced line of shine on a model that has no shine anywhere else. You put a little gloss varnish in the eye to make it look wet, and then a tier. That works. When you're using gloss varnish over bigger parts of the model, it starts to just look glossed, right? So you're having to find a way to push the shine of wet skin into the model and make sure that parts of it don't look wet necessarily. It's tough to pull off. Like if you want a completely wet model, then you need to be doing non-metallic kind of reflection on everything. Skin, hair, bathing suit, the whole nine to pull that off.
Belcor's asking, my bold titanium white sometimes overflows when I open it after a good shake. Am I doing something wrong? It could be just pressure building.
Like Okren is saying, the base of the cap. So not just the twist part, but actually like you're going to remove the whole cap.
Yeah.
Just crack it, and it might even sound like Okren is saying, like soda, where it'll release some of that pressure, and then just tighten it back up, and then you can twist open the cap, and that should help.
Yeah, our bottles actually seal. So the wonders of fluid dynamics are occurring, wherein, any pressure changes from cold to warm, rain to no rain in your area are causing the pressure inside the bottle to build up, right? Because it only has the same amount of air as it did when you closed it last time. And so if the pressure changes, that air expands or contracts in the bottle. New air doesn't come in because the bottle's sealed and air can't escape as it pressurizes. So just like a Coke can, just grab that and then just crack the top. You want to give it a turn. You don't have to take the top off, but you can. That doesn't do anything. You just want to crack it to where, you can feel that the bottle's loose so that the air can escape from the inside, right? Also, when you're done, a lot of times, like when you put paint out on your palette, let this sit here for a second. Let the paint drain back in, and because as the paint drains back in, the air that it's replacing comes out. If you just, tilt it back over and then squeeze the top down, wipe the excess paint off on your palette, you think you're good to go, but now you've trapped more air in the bottle than may fit. So you've created your own pressurized bottle at that point, because the paint's flowing back in, the air's underneath it, because when you squeeze paint out and release, it sucks air back in, right? And so air's gotten in there, and then the paint's draining in behind it and trapping that air from getting out, and then you squeeze the bottle to close, and now it may be too much material in there, air versus liquid. So,
Mr. Blue, thank you for adding that second part. I was going to say that sounds messy. Open it before you shake and then shake, but you got to open it and then close it.
ooh, no. No. Close it back. Unless you just like your walls covered with Pro-Acryl. I have some shirts that look like that.
Captain Mannering said, I've been decorating my trousers recently with Pro-Acryl.
There you go. There you go.
Have your
Unintentional
special paint
fashion
pants.
choices. Best kind.
So, Jason, tell me where we're at in the process with this non-metallic
Just kind of touching
gold.
up before I move to the bright color. I'm probably spending more time thinking about it than I should. I'm ready to move to a brighter color so I can show off what this looks like as we actually start making the shine appear. This is the point where I generally skip ahead too fast because I get excited. I'm still a kid at heart when it comes to painting. I love the finish line sometimes on these processes. You got to remember that it's going to take you some time to get there, especially when you're doing everything. A lot of times when I'm painting, I might do just the shoulder plate and then go do the other ones once we're fine. But here I'm trying to do them all at once so everybody can see the different shapes get highlighted. So now we're going to move to bright pale yellow. This is a color that will appear like a white on top of this gold, even though when you compare this to gold titanium white, it's not any, it still looks like a dark color. But it gives us the ability to move into a bright reflective color and still have white as an option to grow into. I won't generally put white on a model until the very, very end. White should be your last choice for bringing a particular part of the model up to full volume, right? If you use it at this stage of the model, it's hard to bring other areas up to par with it because you already have the brightest color you can use, which is white, on the model. So nothing else will be able to compete, and you can't make that any brighter. You know, it's why we say you paint white without using white. Because if you paint the Stormtrooper white, what do you highlight him with?
So how are you going to approach this step?
I'm just going to put paint on the model. I'm going to look at my brightest areas, which I've already defined, right? I already know where I want the most brightness. But again, you've seen me every time I start with edges. I'll start grabbing some of these edges across the top of the model here, where I know that my light is kind of directly applied to the surface. And I'll just kind of lightly use the side of the brush and find some of these edges.
Nice.
King
Again,
Tone,
using...
so glad you love the brush case.
Mm-hmm.
Right, so there we have instant shine on those edges. Now I'll go in and I've got a lot of areas defined here where I've got, you know, the shine across the cylinder of these eye shapes. And this is going to be like the least amount of paint we put on the model now, but it'll take us a lot longer to figure out where to put it, how to get it on there, because we really need to be careful not to overdo these bright colors. Otherwise, it blows out all the other colors we put on the model. All of the underpainting and all that stuff will just kind of be shot if we do too much brightness here. Right?
Captain Mannering said Laura's Teeny Tiny Victories is asking, what is Jason's preferred white of eyes? What do you use for the whites of eyes?
Ivory and olive
tried
flesh I
ivory
tend to
last
use a
time.
lot of.
Did ivory not work for her, Captain Mannerings? Is that what we're asking? She said she's tried ivory last time.
Yeah, this bright pale yellow works, but it can look jaundiced depending on the skin tone. Olive flesh, bone, all of these are great colors for the sclera.
What'd you use on this guy?
I believe ivory. I don't know that I remember, but probably ivory.
Is it in the video from today?
It's on the VOD
The
for
VOD.
the video from Monday.
That is, if you guys are wanting to go back and look at the exact workup for this eye, it's on January 6th. It's on a VOD. It is about halfway through the VOD.
There's a wealth of knowledge, just pulls that right out.
Yeah, I am now very, very in tune.
Can
with
we
where things are.
can we zoom one more level?
Yep.
We're putting so little paint on, and now
Yeah.
we've got to kind of really dive in and look at this at the granular level, because the biggest shine will come from the smallest little doot of paint. This is really where deets and dutes are important.
Beats and dudes.
It doesn't take a lot of shine on that nostril to pull off the look we're going for. We need to start looking at the shape. Like if I have a scratch here, right? That scratch would get highlighted. This little spot where a whisker would be coming out would get highlighted. There's a scratch in the armor across the lip here. That'll get highlighted.
Mr. Blue, it's in a magical location.
Right. And so we're really just looking at where I put all that brightness, like on the shape of the tooth here, and the brightest spot would be up towards the top, towards my light source, and I'll just kind of stipple that on there, just kind of poke a little bit of brightness around at the top there. The tooth has a scar or scratch in it, so I'll also put a little bit of brightness on the other side of that scratch, but that's really where I want the shine on the tooth. You can see it has a little nick right across the bottom, so I'll switch my brush direction up and I'll go across that nick, catch that little shine there. Right, now you might want to put a little doot right here.
Nice.
Then I'll start at the top of this tooth. Brightness on that.
Yes, Mr. Blue, the extra zoom definitely comes in handy for these. We lose a little bit of detail, but at least you can see the ultra, the macro version of it.
For my eyes, that's a lot of detail.
Yeah, it is a lot of detail. You can really utilize the sharpness of these lenses.
Again, pull a little line and then doot at the top so that I get the blend of the highlight going up the tooth, and then the dot at the top is where that shine ends. And that's the key. Right, again, pull the line, very light pressure, pulling it up towards the top, and then load the paint on at the top.
Happy little dutes. That's
Yeah.
right.
Gives you a nice little blended shine up to the top of the tooth. Same thing here. Just going to pull that light line up and then pile on the brightness at the top.
Nice.
Mr. Blue said, I have trouble knowing if my brush is touching or not. I guess the only solution is practice. My dutes are more like derps.
Yep. Yeah, I hear you. I have the same problem. You'll see me sometimes do this where it's like it feels like I'm moving the brush a lot and nothing's happened. That's because I'm moving it as I'm closing in on the model sometimes.
Get ready.
And eventually it'll hit. It's called old eye syndrome. Because I don't want to just jam it into the model. So right now it's exactly what I'm doing. I'm just kind of moving it, knowing that if it does touch the model, it's the line I want, and then just keep pushing the brush closer and closer to the model as I go. Eventually I get that little bit of touch. It gives me the shine across there like I want. And see how much different that looks?
Yeah.
Just with a little bit. I mean, this is a little bit of paint. There's not much paint happening here. And that's the key. A lot of people overdo it here because you treat it like any other layer. And you got to remember, the brighter colors you put on the model don't need as much because they have the biggest impact visually. The way your brain and eye register contrast is so extreme that it only takes a tiny bit of this color to really make it pop.
Codril, we use a Blackmagic 4K camera. Yeah, it's all it takes is a couple of those little dutes.
Yeah.
That's it.
Pretty crazy.
Mr. Blue, I'm amazed you do this all with just readers. I use 2x lenses with models, 6-inch for my face, and still have a hard time to see.
I have, knock wood, I've always had good eyesight.
Yep.
So it was only in the last, I will say now, it's been 4 or 5 years that I've even started using the readers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, since I started painting.
Because I just was making fun of Jen one day and said,
then
"Oh, you need
them.
your eyes." And I picked up her glasses, made fun of her, and put them on, and looked at a model and was like,
Oh.
Oh, this is better.
so I did not know what I was missing.
Zazin's asking if you're going to go to white on the gold, or if this is essentially the last step.
In my head, this is the last step. In reality, we'll see how everything else turns out. There might be a need to push it to a couple of deets or dutes of white. But right now, this feels pretty good. What do you guys think?
I think I like it.
It's going to be how it appears in the scene with everything else.
White would be really
jarring right now.
Really jarring, but also because then you'd have to deet your dutes, right?
You got to do your dutes.
That's
deet your deets, deet your dutes. Yes, there's a lot of
day.
complications that brings into frame.
Kodril Miniac talked about his setup in his last video. I saw the title of that. I haven't watched it yet. I was looking forward to. Jason has been in there. Jason actually has some B-roll shots in that video. You'll see Jason. I watched a couple minutes of it, but I want to sit down and fully watch that one. I'm always curious on what other filmmakers use.
Malev. Hello. Malev said that looks like a lion's shoulder pad.
This is Anthony El Tigre, the legally distinct Primarch of the First Legion.
Jesse, how do you mount your cameras? It is what I call the Death Star is how we do it. That is an apparatus of my mind.
He's got
just a glimpse into the metal spider web in which is above Jason's head. C-stand, no, not C-stands, grip heads, a bunch of, we call them baby pins, which is the weirdest name for those, but we have a lot of stuff up there. Very carefully is how we mount them. I'd be lying if I haven't had a slight surreal nightmare of all these cameras falling.
Shh, don't say that out loud.
It's all right. I'm going to anti-jinx myself.
Should not say things like that out loud.
It's all right. They won't. I have them all safety chained to the wall.
What kind of danger is Jason in from falling cameras? Exactly. None. We trust Christopher.
Uh-oh. A lot of pressure.
I'm not listening to you people. I have to focus on painting and not whether or not I die before I leave the studio.
You're in Deet and Doot land right now.
I am in deep Doot land right now.
Yes.
Jason is so safe, it's not even funny. Derpstick, I'm looking forward to seeing how the face is painted even further.
Yeah, that'll be one of the last things we do. We start there. Right? It's funny because you tend to pick the areas you start with, and a lot of times they're the ones that are furthest nestled in the model. And if it's something like the skin, right, then you gotta think in terms of, okay, well, I can't finish this because I don't want it to get too out of control. I got to know how bright everything else is before I know how bright to make the skin, right? And then, you wind up painting the whole rest of the model before you come back and finish the thing you started first. And that seems odd to people, but that's really the way it takes it. That's part of your patience in painting, is to know that it's good enough for now. I have other things that need to be qualified before I can make the good decisions on how to finish this part.
James Mathis, sorry, got pulled away for the answer on how to save a model from chalkiness. He was mentioning it might be unsavable.
Chalkiness is a tough one. You just have to put another. I would start with, one of your darker coats for that area of the model, whatever was underneath it that was darker, and then just build back your color. That's literally the best answer. There's not anything else that makes sense beyond that, really.
Iterator, we've got a group going to LVO this weekend in Las Vegas. Jason will be there with Gabe and Maddie and Shelby, I think.
Yeah, just me, Gabe, Maddie, and Shelby.
And then Adepticon would be next. We also have a booth at Gen Con.
Gamma. One of them.
Gamma's not an open.
Yeah, if you're an industry
show.
professional, we're at Gamma.
Yeah.
Nova
Open.
Mm-hmm.
We'll potentially have someone again at UK Games Expo and Spiel, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the plan. What other small things did you guys do last year?
Well, we did WonderCon, but I don't know if we're doing WonderCon again this year. We're really focused on figuring out how to do more in the EU and the UK. Mm-hmm. So that's a big step for us. I'm really happy with that. That's looking good.
For all tuning in, we are continuing with the non-metallic metal on this guy. You can watch all the past VODs from last week where we did the black armor, the face, and then the beginning of yesterday we started really diving into the non-metallic gold side of this model.
That was such a small amount of paint. I want you guys to understand how zoomed in we are, and what I'm doing here is when we say deets and dutes, we're not lying.
These are like
I say all the time, it's the least amount of paint you'll put on the model that'll have the absolute largest impact.
Just to give everybody a perspective here, because obviously you're probably seeing it a little bit compressed from us, right? We are punching in at 500% on this.
That's my
this
thumbnail.
lens. we are maxing out. We're maxing it out here. This will be turning into a non-metallic gold workup video. Coming soon to a theater near you. The deets and dutes of non-metallic gold.
This color is so outstanding.
Great.
This is bright yellow or pale yellow?
This is a bright pale yellow
Bright pale yellow.
Again, from Flame On set. Mashik's set is obviously fantastic for non-metallic gold. That was the whole gist of it. But we tend to use it around here for everything other than that. As we do a lot of browns and...
Vasco, first time chat. What do you do with your models after you finish painting?
Wait, you finished painting? They sit on a shelf so that we can bring them down and show you guys specific things and use them as tutorials after the fact.
We also had a very good conversation during our lunch today about the process of painting, and this is the part that gets us jazzed, is the process. The end result is always great, but
oh yeah. Yeah, I am a journey guy when it comes to painting. I think I mentioned at lunch today, Chris, that for me, every brushstroke is exciting. And that sounds really nerdy, but it's the truth.
it is. It's fun.
For me, every brushstroke that I put on a model has the ability to just teach me something new about a shape or a defining area or a color application or something like that. So, which, like I said, it seems insane because here I am putting up 50 million brushstrokes on this model, but look at the impact each one of those is having. I'm sitting here processing the same way you guys are as I put these in this space. I'm like, is this the spot for this? I think so, dude. And then I'm like, when? And so each brushstroke becomes its own little mini game, so to speak, for me. Mm-hmm. So the completion of the model is almost like anticlimactic for me because I'm like, I don't want it to end. I want to continue to be able to do it. Or some models I just get bored with. So there is that too.
Well, and a lot of what you paint is for instructional purposes. So you might paint
100%.
Like only a specific part of it to show that particular technique.
Yep.
So.
I'm backtracking right now. I'm going back to the bright yellow ochre because I'm not happy with this eye. I forgot to highlight the eye with the midtone. So when I dropped the brightness over the eye, it didn't look right. It didn't look the way I wanted it to. Because it was too bright on too dark, which does not give me the feel of shine that I want. You have to be careful, right? Because if you just go super dark and then super bright over super dark, it's going to look odd.
Lumberjack Tim is asking about the Spira dwarf. Is that the one with the hammer?
The Spira Mirabilis or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
Dwarf? Yeah.
Wanted to see it at some point. Green.
I don't have him here.
I know where that is, actually.
He's out on one of the mini tables filled with miniatures that we have in this office. But yeah, I know exactly where. That's one that we started painting, showing everybody that I do indeed know how to use a wet palette. There we go. That's going to be a lot better.
Non-metallic gold aspects on it as well.
Yeah.
Right, just put that right in
He
your line.
put me right on my left hand so I can knock it over.
Is there an up-to-date master list count of all models in the office?
No,
were we
there's
supposed
not.
to be doing that?
There's I no. Nope.
All of them, I think, is the answer.
You name it, we got it.
Lots. Many. A boatload, maybe?
Yeah, that would be a
I would
nice
say
way
a
of putting
small.
it.
I would say it's
Small
like
boat.
a small dinghy,
Yeah.
like small dinghy's worth
Small
of
dinghy.
models.
What are you talking about? This is like one of those cruise liners that
It's true.
Somalis
super
try to
yacht.
hijack.
It's a super yacht like my boat show.
Yeah, my boat. Yeah, we got models.
Below decks.
Yeah.
We got models.
That's like asking someone to count sand on a beach.
We got to start a show, Boats and Sprues.
Boats and Sprues. That's it. That's the name of the podcast, everybody.
Boats and Sprues.
Boats and Sprues. That's such a good name. We don't even talk about boats.
No.
We mention a boat maybe once. Or there's 5 minutes of the podcast where it's just a very detailed section about boats.
Or we just show a picture of a boat.
Yeah,
Like, here's a boat.
there's just a small.
Here's today's boat.
Yeah.
It's like that bad Zoom call background. It's just like
Yes.
the deck of a boat.
There's
We were
just-
talking about nerd stuff, but there's really no boats at
There's
all.
a PowerPoint presentation of boats just in the bottom left corner the entire time.
It's just running through
Just
the whole
Google
time.
images.
You just paint while on a boat, so it's rocking, but otherwise you never mention it.
Yes, exactly. Now you got it.
That's it, chat.
People just get seasick watching. Don't know why.
Get ready. if you think about it, and if you're just listening to Jason's voice, this is already a podcast.
Yeah.
If you really technically think about it, it's a video podcast, right? And it's also tutorials in a classroom, but technically it's like a podcast.
You work with boats all day. Please don't talk about boats.
Sorry. And Captain Mannering's, yeah, she's pretty chill every day. This is her snooze time, which is also most of her day.
Tech Elf made a mix of nouche and bone color and had it sat overnight. Just painted a skull and didn't wipe it off. Really cool effect. Ooh. Was that I'd have to check that out.
Sounds neat.
Nouche and bone. Bone is one of my favorite colors too.
Noosh is one of those things you can just play with and come up with all sorts of interesting things to do.
Yeah, like who knows what'll, who knows
People
what
are all
you
the
can
time
come
asking
up
me,
with.
like, hey, have you ever thought about doing this? I'm like, no, not at all, but you should try that. That sounds awesome.
Mr. Blue, thanks for that sub as well. Appreciate that.
Jade, hello. Jade, did you get your bikes situated? Another Twitch streamer just rescued a kitty called Fat Bob, which is a great name.
Fat Bob. That's awesome. Poor cat.
That's awesome. Yeah, poor Fat Bob getting a complex, but I'm sure very loved. Loves being rescued. We feel like Poppy appreciates being rescued.
Fat Bob.
Was he rescued from a family that fed him too much? I don't understand.
No, the joke is that Fat Bob is actually very fit.
Very, very thin. Derpstick said for a rust effect, nouche and an orange brown would be good.
Yeah, I like burnt sienna. What we tend to use, or what I tend to use as a rust. It's what we did on all of the trench pilgrims.
Smelly Fella says, I left a few Patreon subs after finding this channel. Why pay $10 to $20 a month for a sub when I can learn a lot more here?
For free.
More fun while learning.
All you have to do is buy ProCrill.
That's
Remember,
our ask.
We're watching you.
Hey, yeah.
While I am sorry that they will no longer have your patronage, I'm glad you're finding tremendous value out of our stream.
Yes, I'm sorry for them. But thank you.
Sorry for them, but welcome.
It's funny. I didn't pay for any of my artistic knowledge. I was blessed with being able, well, I guess technically I was blessed with being a big mouth kid. I was never afraid to ask older gentlemen at hobby stores how the heck to do the things they were talking about and that I was seeing that I thought were so cool. And, I probably just bugged them long enough that they finally gave up and were like, all right, kid, check it out. I'm only going to tell you this once. I probably got a lot of that. I'm going to show you a little trick here. I have a distressed hair on this brush. You can see how it's kicked out to the side there. It's probably been broken or creased in a way that can't fix. Take your clippers, pull that hair all the way down to the ferrule, and then clip it down at the ferrule. I missed. Clip it down at the ferrule. Don't cut up here where it's bent. Pull it all the way down so that it no longer draws any paint, right? If you have a brush for a long time, you probably have a couple of cut off hairs that'll be here at the bottom that look kind of janky, but it prevents it from messing up the tip of your brush over time.
What is the scientific term for one of those little hairs that flees from your brush like that? What's the scientific term, Jason?
An escapee.
What do we call those?
It's an escapee.
An escapee hair?
Yeah.
Got it.
We can't allow them to escape, so we have to cut them off before they get too far and tell anybody about us.
Great.
Source has a different name.
The escapee here.
So little paint.
So little paint, so much time.
Such a big difference. Like a broken record. Like
Huge difference.
It's funny how little paint you put on, how long it takes to get such a big change to the overall model at this point. I don't know if that, I feel like, I don't know what this is. It's like a little rivet thing, so I'm going to highlight it because there's one here too.
Like, it's like keeping the trim in, right?
I don't know. It's on both sides, so I'm assuming it's deliberate and not just like weird stands that weren't cleaned off when they did the master test print. But I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. It looks like it's deliberate, so I'm going to paint them.
A gold rivet or something?
Yeah.
Yeah. Huh. There you go.
Yeah, we'll leave it.
If you're all tuning in, we are working on the non-metallic gold section of the model. We started that last Friday. So you can see the green, the dark purple, and the orange oxide, I believe it was.
Yep, orange oxide.
Work up underneath all of this, and now we're here.
And now we're here. Somehow we got here.
And yesterday we did I would say the thing that covered, I don't want to say covered it, but covered it, right?
Yeah.
We started decorating the foundation, and now we're here adding deets and dudes.
The brightest color has the biggest impact. It takes up the least amount of space on the model, right? Catching some edges, getting that shine working, and just kind of pulling brightness into those areas. Now we'll put more paint on these large open areas that we had working here. Very thin at first, so it sits nice and neat over that yellow. So again, just a thin glaze. We don't want to have it be like a jarring, impactful white thrown over the top of the yellow that's hard to blend. We'll start with a very thin version of the bright pale yellow, glazing it to where I want it to be brightest.
Welcome in, everybody, if you're just now hopping in.
Again, you'll see me work from both sides towards the middle on these shapes, to where my bright spot is right here, right? But I can't just paint that. I have to paint from this side to that bright spot, and from this side to that bright spot. And then in the middle, where the paint strokes come together, just kind of stipple it together just to make sure that it doesn't look like it's all scritchy. And I'll build that up 2 or 3 times to make that brighter. After a couple of coats, it'll start to brighten up nicely and really give us the shine we're looking for. Turn them all around so I can get this other edge.
For all of you who just had that wake-up call that we were super zoomed in, this is what it's starting to look like a little bit from the, the face level or whatever I'm trying to say.
Yeah, you can see what a big difference this little bit of paint we've put on has versus this over here. Now this doesn't look any kind of metallic at all.
Yeah,
right?
It
just looks like it's painted yellow.
Yep.
It's this brightness that then puts the shine and the reflectiveness to it that really starts pulling it out as a metallic.
And was it all the same colors on everything? So you're going to do the same thing on the...
On here, on the gorget, and on this other shoulder plate too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But we haven't put much paint on here. It's
No.
all just the specific placement of that paint that makes the difference. And the fact that it's so bright. We've taken 2 big jumps. The bright yellow ochre was very bright compared to the orange brown beneath it. And then this bright pale yellow is much brighter than the bright yellow ochre.
Azria, yeah, it's amazing how little it takes to make such a big impact when you pull back. Yes, when you start looking at this back at this level, and this is even 200%, right? You can come back out here and you can really start seeing how it all blends together, and even from the very far out punch out, you can start seeing it. But see, like from that level, you really start seeing like, oh, it's super bright. And then you go back in, and that's kind of where it's at.
Mo, that made me laugh.
I dated a Gorget once.
Mo said I dated a Gorget once.
I don't know what to say about that, Mo. I don't know how to act. Mo. To be careful, there's a big chunk out of the shoulder plate edge right here. It has a elliptical divot right there, and I keep trying to go over that divot with as if there's an edge.
Oh, okay.
And it does weird stuff, but it has a big chunk out right there.
I'm gonna zoom
see
in.
that eyeball shaped
Oh,
chunk.
yeah.
Every time I try to do it with just the side of the brush, it has a hiccup there, and I'm like, what is going on? And it's only with these brighter colors starting to draw it out that I'm like, oh, that's why.
It looks intentional.
Yeah,
Like
probably.
battle damage?
Battle damage. I'll go with that.
As we say, I love the thumb palette. Yes, Jason is a big fan of the thumb palette. That video is coming, by the way.
Controlling the viscosity of your paint is one of the most important things you'll do in brush control and painting in general. And for me, it's the thumb palette that really does that.
You will never see Jason painting without paint on his thumb.
Very rarely. Sometimes when I'm just doing big base coats on models, like the first day I'm painting, won't have a lot of thumb palette because I just kind of go from the paint to the model and do big base coating. So there are times where it's, I won't, or if I'm airbrushing, obviously I don't. But,
well, yeah, obviously.
When I'm brush painting in details and stuff, oh yeah, it'll look like an absolute train wreck on my hand. And if somebody asks me to test paint and show them transparency, yeah, my hand gets crazy. Doesn't take too much to anymore. I need more of the bright pale yellow. Oh, that angle right there is really good.
Yeah, that's great.
Seen some folks use their nail, but not often on the fleshy bit.
It's winter here and really dry, so I got to be careful. I need to be moisturizing my hands because the paint it makes my skin really dry.
Oh, yeah.
Because so like especially like when you're having to take it off later.
Well, because I'll just go home and like quickly wash my hand and like scrub it.
You're like,
and and like with like dish soap and dry skin is just not a great combo.
I don't know. What do you do that about 200 times a year?
Oh my God, it's so bad.
You think about how often you have to do that. It's a surprise that your hand hasn't fallen off, like just straight up, as it just.
You could use brush goop on it. That would help.
Oh yeah.
Do you often catch people in public noticing your painter hand?
Yes.
Some people just straight up ask.
People that know me are
like, like, oh, you painted today.
Yeah, people that know me are like, oh, nice to see you work today. If I don't have paint on my hand, they don't think I did anything.
This is looking great.
I got all these angles. There's so many parts of this model that point towards the light source from different directions, so I still got to highlight them, right? Even as we go over into the dark side, these edges would catch the light stronger just because of the angle they've got, even though the rest of it might fall into shadow. And like I said yesterday, we still want to make sure we catch some highlight on things back here so that we don't lose the fact that it's shiny metal.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't want to go as intense. So I might paint with the paint being a little diluted, a little thinner. Will help it from being quite so bright on some of these edges, and do less of a pull along that edge. So I'm not highlighting the whole edge, just catching little flares here and there. Right, that pull those edges out a little bit. That's looking pretty good though.
Yep. Smelly's Bella's asking, back in the 70s and 80s, were you into the Avalon Hill games like Squad Leader or Panzer Leader?
Yeah.
Nice. We played Squad Leader with minis.
Panzer Leader. None of the kids on my block had money for minis. The one kid, Matt, that taught us D&D had some minis. And that's what got me ultimately into mini painting. And then BattleTech was the first one where I could convince my parents to buy us some minis. And I had like a lance worth because it came in a box. And, but yeah, we played a lot of those. They were the, gosh, what do I want to call them? SST games or whatever they were. What was that company that made so many of those, like Panzer Leader? No, it wasn't Steve Jackson. Avalon Hill sounds, yeah, Avalon Hill for sure. But there was another one that. But yeah, those are great. They had chits. So you played with the little chits that were like, here's your tank battalion. And it was a little, military symbol for mechanized infantry and such, right? Those are really cool. They make them now, versions of them for the PC that operate the same way. They use little markers that you move around, so no miniatures, nothing super fancy, but those are still kind of fun. It's a little too mind numbing for me nowadays. Usually when I'm in that mode, it's not what I want to do. Like I'm not good with like Twilight Imperium. It feels a lot like that, kind of like 4X. Too much to pay attention to, too much like work after work. But as a kid, heck yeah, those games were amazing. Loved them. Oops, sorry.
We did some BattleTech, or you painted up a whole thing of BattleTech.
I have a whole battalion.
Oh yeah, a whole battalion of BattleTech.
Whole battalion. Not messing around. We built our mercenary battalion.
I gotta bring some.
Carry on and her wayward sons.
Oh yeah.
I like it. Get most of our shine from this direction, but we still have enough to know we're still metal from this side too. So that's working pretty well. Very, very happy.
True metallic in a wash would have been much faster, Jason.
Whoever said that.
Source.
You are my enemy.
Your enemy or your hero?
But would it be as satisfying? No, definitely not.
No, absolutely not.
Well, and I don't know, right? It's funny because we talk about this a lot. Like people like, when would you use non-metallic versus metallic and such? That
came up a lot yesterday.
This complex shape with metal on it would not ruin the model, but it would be really hard to pull off in a way that made you like the model you just spent all that time on. Right?
Especially at this scale, too. It's a really cool scale to do it at.
Yeah, this model's really cool. It's got a lot of really cool shapes in the sculpt. So to be able to pull all that out and really let the model come to life by doing this is great. Now, you could do that with metallics as well. So, that is one thing to think about. You could have done this with metallics, but I've always said that by the time you really spend the right amount of effort to get your metallics looking top notch, you could do either. So it just really is a personal preference. You could do non-metallic in the same amount of time. Complex shapes like this, where you have so many reflective surfaces, you put a reflective paint on there and they become too much. You've just got too much shine going on.
What colors would you use for a cream-colored cloak? Asked Derpstick.
I like light umber as a base. And then moving into like the ivories is always a great way to go. They give you that dirty white, or cream coloring. And it's the same thing I would use for like parchment and purity seals and things of that nature. Make sure those ones on the top are pretty bright and reflective.
I'm going to zoom in one more time, Jason. There you go. Oh man, it's almost 4.
I know, it's crazy.
Getting a lot of work done on this.
It never feels like it at this stage. Although I say that, this is where you really start to enjoy the look of it and you start to see the fruits of your labor.
Yeah.
When we talk about the whole dumpster fire or going through the ugly phase of your model, this is the ugly phase of non-metallic metal where it looks like, it just looks like yellow. It's just painted yellow. It doesn't look like metallic yet. And then you start seeing this, and all of a sudden, now you're like, oh, now I get it.
Yep.
Right? Now I see. And it's all about being able, with the metallics, to leave that amount of contrast you need to really see it. But it does make this stage, for as little paint as I'm actually applying, really start to pop and come to life.
Zira, how many hours are you in on this?
Only a handful.
The non-metallic gold, from start to from where we finished, would be like what? It was 2 streams, like 2.5 streams. So like about 5 hours on the non-metallic gold. About 6 on the black armor. And then if you go back to January 6th on the face of 2025, you'll be able to see he did that all in one day.
It's about an hour and a half of stream time.
Just about an hour and a half.
Stream's about 5 times longer than actual paint time.
Yep.
Although I've been able with the new setup to really focus a lot more, so maybe it's less of a diversion than that. But with talking with chat, taking breaks to discuss other painting topics, I would say that it's about 25% of the time we're actually here with the painting, versus what it would be if I were just knuckled down doing it, right? Like if I came in on a weekend and put some music on and we're painting, all this would go a lot faster.
Yeah. Cat Beard is asking, the upcoming sepia wash you showed yesterday, is it on the lighter or the darker brown side? Really pumped for those paints.
It's like a darker greenish brown.
Like a greenish brown, okay.
Greenish yellow or brown, that's what sepia really is that?
Yeah, it definitely has that tint of faded yellow, or it's hard to describe it, but
yeah,
it comes from old like parchment film or whatever that stuff is called. I don't know what that technical term is.
Right, it leans a little into some green. It's not quite like, I wanted it to be different than if you use transparent brown as a wash. Transparent brown is warmer, so this one's a lot cooler than that temperature wise by being a little bit more green. But I think people are going to love it. I've been using it on a lot of things that I've been painting that have like leather straps, and it works really amazing for that.
What's your favorite genre to paint, Jason? Sci-fi, fantasy, or superhero? What's your favorite? If you had to choose.
Of painting models?
Before you answer that, I just want to jump out. I gotta go say goodbye to the crew, get the building all locked up because it's quitting time around here.
Oh my gosh!
So I'm gonna take off. But we'll see
Bye,
you guys
Jen.
next time.
Bye, babe.
Wake up, Poppy.
So, what's your favorite genre to paint? You think,
It's
Jason?
such a hard question.
I don't know. I think not to answer for him, but for me personally, it's the model. If the model's speaking out to me, it's whatever that is, right?
I'm a rule of cool guy, and I always say that, and I don't want that to be a cop-out for those questions, but that's really the case, is that I'm like, whatever speaks to me. There's a lot of fantasy models that jump off the plate. This guy could literally just be a knight, right? It doesn't have to be sci-fi. There's nothing sci-fi about it other than our knowledge of the 40K world, right? There's really nothing about this guy that sets him into a sci-fi world. It could just be a knight.
Yep.
He's giving out just a sword. The bulkiness and the fact that we know Space Marines is what is, sells it as such.
Yeah.
But so I don't know. I like crazy creatures. I think that fantasy for me is a lot more fun to paint overall because sci-fi feels very repetitive. There's a lot of metal and guns.
Yeah.
Dudes in armor, guns, some belts. That's it. Uh-huh. Think of your standard Space Marine and how boring the material on a standard Space Marine can be. It's armor, a gun, eye lenses, some belts.
And that's it. Pretty much it.
Right? I like things with a lot of texture. You can have sci-fi models that have a lot of texture, but like in the world of like 40K, I really like the new Vespids, the Stingwings that came out, and the new Necromunda thing, because they have organic stuff. The Nurgle stuff, like the Death Guard, with all the guts hanging out and the tentacles and the little cheruby dudes running around, the Nurglings, that I like a lot better. So I really enjoyed painting that sci-fi because it has more material to it. Yeah. It has more of a focus on things other than just armor and guns. Whereas fantasy is all over the place. You get everything leather, every material you can imagine. So, I had a blast painting our bear dude. Because again, fantasy and just has a ton of different materials. Everything from leather to metals, to whatever you want to do on this. And you can have a ton of fun with that different material focus, because that's what really gets me going. Then again, like Percival, one of my favorite models of all time.
Oh, that one, yeah.
And there's a lot going on here, but of course Percival is just a little owl with armor, and a feather, and but still, stuff like this is a lot of fun. But yeah.
So rule of cool.
I don't ever go into it going, oh, not another sci-fi model. But I definitely like to spruce up my Space Marines. If we're going to paint Space Marines, they need to be more than just armor, gun, pouch.
Yeah. Those are kind of nice palette cleansers every once in a while. But definitely the rule of cool.
Again, one kind of glazy pass with the color to get my light situated where I want it.
Melly fella, my favorite genre is historical military figures. I know I'm boring. No, Jason loves that.
Boring?
Yeah.
That's where I come from. I love it. I don't do it as much anymore because that world kind of became, again, it became a little bit boring to me because I'd done all of the Tamiya tanks I liked, and I've built so many Tigers and Panzer IVs, Aus, everything, the whole alphabet, and dioramas with the same running German tank crew that I've altered and made into all the different shapes, so it became kind of boring. Now I look back and there's a whole world of people doing like garage resin kits of really cool like tank figures. I've got a Israeli, no, it's a Spanish Scorpion, right, which is a wheeled tank. right? I've got a 35th scale Spanish Scorpion that has the big gun barrel, like the 105 millimeter on a 6-wheel chassis or something like that. Really cool armored fighting vehicle. And then a female 135th scale tank crew chassis that's very relaxed because it's meant to be an homage to Tank Girl. So I have like these 135th scale military female tankers that are really cool miniatures, you know. And so I've got that I want to put in a diorama with a 135th scale Calamity big model that is the Breagle sniper mech. It's this big armored, like real world Gundam feeling thing. It's real gritty, battle worn Gundam, if you can think that way.
Welcome in, Brannigan Brushes rating. You guys are rating us just at the end here.
We're finished. Welcome everybody.
Welcome in, Raiders.
You show the model one more time. We are working today on digging in more into the non-metallic gold on Anthony L. Tigre.
That's right.
And got a lot done.
Yeah, we did.
You could just see in the very quick time we were talking, I was just kind of glazing on the shoulder plate, and you can see the big difference that it made. Now the poor Gorget just looks like, you know, like we painted it yellow. And coming together. Thanks, Brannigan. But now you're a non-metallic metal painting fool. On to the next level. Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Never painted a Space Marine, never played Warhammer. You're fully in touch with your addictive tendencies and know where to draw the line. I'm content with your He-Man game. Carl Duty, I envy you. I envy you. I love so much about miniature painting that I'll paint anything. I love, like, you know, I get carried away. I'm like, oh my God, I want to do a Blood Angels army. Not because I'll ever play the damn game, but because Blood Angels, like red and gold and lightning claws and storm shields and jump packs and a whole bunch of them. And I'm like, yes. And then I paint 3 and I'm done.
Yes, a whole army.
You know, so I'm with you. I have the same problem that we all have, but I really just look at models and I think to myself, that's really bitching. I want to put paint on that model, get it, put paint on it. Have people like, what game is that for? No idea.
It's for something.
No idea. You know, it's for a game I'll never play. That's what game it's for. Don't care about the game, care about the model. The model's rad. Don't know anything about it. Sometimes I'll go down the rabbit hole and learn about the model and like the history and what made that model cool. And then you're like, oh, well then maybe I'll learn about the game. And then I remember I don't play games as much anymore, much to the chagrin of all the guys here who would like to challenge me in games. It's been a long time since I rolled dice with models on the table, actually.
You guys played BattleTech the last
we played BattleTech at Gamers Guild. Yeah. We had a lot of fun. We had a 3-man, it's 4.
You, Philip, and Gabe.
It was 2 teams.
Jacob.
It was 2 on 2 teams. Yeah, Nice. It was a lot of fun. You start a new army every year, Panic Bomb. The key word is start. The missing word is finish. I'm with you there.
Jason did.
We all know this is near and dear to all of our hearts. Welcome. This is our 12-step program that we never go past like step 3.
We never go past step 3.
The comfortable part of this 12-step program, this intervention, if you will, friends of the channel, is that all you ever have to do is get up at the podium and say, hi, my name is, and I have a problem. And we all go, hello, we have the same problem. And then we just get back to enjoying the problem. We don't even get to step 2. Yep. It's not even a thing for us. So you can go home and you can tell your family, yes, it's going great. I have my 10-year coin and 1,000 more models.
Yeah. It's funny. You did an army one. What was that? That was about, believe it or not, almost 2 years ago.
With the Lumineth?
With Lumineth Realm Lords.
Lumineth Realm Lords, yeah. I painted a full army in a week.
I learned a lot from that one.
That was a challenge to be able to do the video with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, to do the video with you.
Those little, I remember that.
Colonel said, don't blame when it comes to big army. It's tough, man. It's tough. You know, the nice thing is that the world of miniatures and miniature gaming has grown so immense. There are so many great games that only take a handful of miniatures to play. Malifaux, Infinity were some of the big ones that caught on real quick. Then you had like Guild Ball and things like that were like, you know, you could paint like 6, 7, 8 miniatures and have an amazing time. And so I really was enjoying gaming then. And there's still a lot of those games out there. I painted Warcry army,
Warcry?
the Ogre Maw Pack or
Ogre
Gorger
Maw-
Maw Pack or
yep,
whatever
the
it's
Maw-
called.
Maw
Painted the Maw
tribe.
Pack so that we could play Zambies at Adepticon last year. So that was only a year ago.
Yeah.
Had a lot of fun, great models. Of course.
Those are
So
some cool stuff
again,
in
I
there.
love the models, and to be able to play a game with a completed army is amazing. I love that feeling. I think my lame excuse is that I don't play as many games because I don't finish armies, and I don't want to go play with gray plastic on the table. It isn't as immersive. It just becomes a game,
Yeah,
and
that's
I
a
could
good
go play a
point.
video game if that's all I
Well,
want
and I
to
just
do. Right?
I finished my Soulblight, and Philip and I played the other day, and I'm like, man, this just feels
It feels so much different.
even even if I lose at that point,
Oh, you
I'm
don't
like,
care.
doesn't even matter.
Doesn't
I
even
already
care.
won in a different kind of way.
Yeah, I don't
you
even
know?
care. Doesn't care.
So-
It's not about the game anymore. It's about the models and having the fun and all that. But if my models are gray, then I don't feel the same way. So I'm my own worst enemy when it comes to playing these games. The plastic crack addiction is real, people. 100%. 100%. Everyone, thanks so much for hanging out with us today. Love having you around. Remember, we do stream Monday through Friday, 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Mountain Standard Time here from our HQ in Phoenix, Arizona. We'd love to see him back. So if you're new around here, please hit that follow button and get the alerts to join us both on Twitch and on YouTube. We stream on both simultaneously, so hit that subscribe button over on YouTube as well. These live feeds go straight to the live tab on YouTube right when we're done, so you can catch up if you came in late, want to see the rest of how we did the model we were painting, or catch up with any of the fun shenanigans we have going on in the news from Monument Hobbies HQ. You can go back and watch the entire stream at your leisure. We also have videos coming out that will take the tutorial portions of these streams and put them out for easily digestible bits out on YouTube. The first of those dropped yesterday, which is the face painting tutorial that we did with Anthony L. Tigre here. So make sure you check out all the links that Chris just threw up in chat there. I always love saying you threw up in chat.
I threw it up.
Blech.
Threw
He
up
threw
those
up in chat.
links.
The Monument Hobbies link will take you over to our wonderful store where you can try some Pro Acrylic paints and Pro Series brushes and all the other wonderful things we have for yourself. Then you can dodge over to the FLGS tab on the store that will show you the location of a lot of our wonderful retailers out in the world. We've got hundreds and hundreds of amazing stores out there that rep our products. Please support a store closer to home when you need to restock your Pro Acrylic. They keep the lights on, the air conditioning going, or the heat at this time of year, where you can go be social, meet new people, and play games, paint, do all the fun stuff out in the real world, which is always great. And then our Discord, where you can hang out with, as Ghost Hunter says, 5,303 amazing artists in the Discord with a lot of texture and materials. Yes, we do have a lot of materials. So great place for references, inspiration, hanging out, finding new friends, amazing pet pictures, and food stories. So we have you covered. Join the Discord. We'd love to see you over there. Stick around. Chris is going to find somebody for us to raid, so you get more hobby goodness as you go off into your evening. Make sure you drop a follow in the channel we wind up in. Show some love, and we'll catch you back here tomorrow.